Do you want to understand how to be a better dad and understand fully the power of the dad? Well, have I got the perfect podcast for you today. Don't go away. Today, I'm honored to have here in the podcast studio the author of The Power of a Dad, J. Scott Reed.
Yeah.
Man, it's so good to see you. I've known you for decades.
I know. It's been a long time. I've known your name for many years.
Yeah.
And the high school I went to, you were related to the principal at the time.
Yep.
And so you'd come in and do,
Yeah.
we always thought you were the cool older kid.
Well,
older. I do want to make sure people know.
Because I'm 4 years older than you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. So
Not wiser, just
Yeah.
older. But
Just
yeah, man,
age.
I think this might mark the longest conversation you and I have ever had.
probably already.
I think we've already
gotten
gotten to the point in time where it's the longest
Yeah.
conversation.
So this is
we've ever
all
had.
new territory now
Yeah.
that the viewer gets to watch.
But I feel like we're related because, I mean, you...
I did notice that right when I came in. I noticed that. I actually know that shirt, and it's a shacket.
A shacket.
And I wore my
Yes.
shacket.
You wore your shacket. We wore the dad's shacket.
This is what dads do, especially dads with bellies like me. You stop buttoning it because then you see the belly. This gives
Yeah.
some sort of visual.
Well, it's the layers so that
confuses
you no
people.
longer have to tuck in this shirt
Correct.
and worry about the belly. It's these layers. It's the moo for men.
It's a visual. It's visually. It throws people off enough to where they don't notice
Absolutely.
the belly. So great shacket. It's a great shacket.
I like your shacket. I'm glad I didn't wear my green shacket. I wore the
I know
black
we
shacket.
would have.
Do you have a black
twinning.
shacket?
I do. I
See,
do have a black jacket,
we gotta-
and I almost wore that too.
The next
Yeah.
time you come, we gotta make sure we're not wearing the same
It's so true.
shacket.
Which shacket? I'm on my way. Which shacket did you pick this morning? All right.
But seriously, I almost wore a black T-shirt under my shacket
Dude,
today.
we
That
would've
would have been
been-
way too close.
I would have had to gone home. That would have taken a while.
Wardrobe,
Yep,
we need some help.
Exactly.
That's too cool. Well, man, I've had a blast reading through your book. It's a new book called The
Yeah.
Power of a Dad. We have the link in the description for you to be able to get this. All of you,
Awesome.
you got to get this because,
Thanks.
Scott, you have such a great perspective of not only the necessity of a dad, but also just all the different aspects of what does it mean to be a dad. What
Yeah.
are the things that incorporates? And I just
Yeah.
right from the intro, you said something. Can I quote you?
Well, please. I hope it's good.
No, it's great. You were given stats
Yeah.
about what happens when people don't have a dad.
Yeah.
You know, the stats of the dadless.
It's unbelievable.
And I'm just going to go through it real quick.
Sure.
1 in 4 U.S. children grow up without a father in the home.
Yeah.
I mean, 1/4. That's crazy. And those children fare far worse in metrics when it comes to mental and behavioral health, along with levels of self-esteem, depression, anxiety, and the risk of suicide. 90% of homeless and runaway youth and young adults come from fatherless homes. 71% of all children who abuse substances come from fatherless homes.
Yeah.
Students are twice as likely to drop out of high school when no father is present. Fatherlessness has a direct link to teenage pregnancy rate and sexual activity. And 85% of all youths in prison are fatherless. 85%.
Yeah.
You go into a prison right now, 85% of them, you say, did you have an active dad?
Yeah.
And they'll say no.
Yeah, and so much of the premise even that sort of drove me to want to write this is that you'd look around culture and you just over and over you would see the evidence of the power of a dad, either in a really fruitful way, that dads that have really built up sons and daughters, or what we're reading right there. And so I thought to myself, okay, most of these issues in culture are probably not because of not present or bad moms. Now, are there moms that don't do a great job? Of course.
Yeah.
And that aren't there? Of course. But that's probably not the root of so many of the things that we see around us.
It doesn't seem to be the norm.
Right.
You know, moms, it's almost like there's something implanted within them.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that truly is, because we do know, you know, anatomically, there are things that happen
Right.
chemically in a woman that there is a bond
Yes,
between
for
them
sure.
and the child that's not present in the male.
Sure.
So we know that there's that stuff, but also culture has stated we're a lot harder on a mom who gives up her kids than the dad who walks away from their kids.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think society adds that extra layer of what's expected.
Yeah.
What's the expectation of a dad versus a mom?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and one of the things I talk about too is you really started noticing it in some of my favorite like 90s sitcom shows.
Yeah.
Where you and funny shows, I get it, but like what was that Al Bundy show? And then you had
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Married with Children, and then you also had like Everybody Loves Raymond, and these. They were funny shows, of course, but like
even The Simpsons.
Yeah, these dads were buffoons, like really, and they were. That was what was so funny about the show, and everything they touched actually made things worse, right? And that just sort of became normal to where, even in culture, dads started thinking, well, if moms are doing a good job, I should probably back off because I'm going to mess this thing up.
Yeah,
I'm going to mess, and we were telling them that. Media was telling us that.
Yeah. I think generally, media did that, but then also within subcultures. I mean, both of you are as white as white can be, and that's unfortunate. That I'm I'm not a person of color to be able to give credibility to what I'm about to say.
Sure.
But I work with a ton of people. You work with a ton of people. I mean, your work currently in LA to be the father to the fatherless, to help people who are literally and spiritually fatherless. They're orphans in LA. You and your wife have a huge passion. That's why, I mean, you guys moved. How long ago did you move to LA?
So a year ago, August of 22, kind of sold everything, packed up a couple of pods, and downsized hugely because we knew we were going into an apartment. We moved from Wheaton, Illinois, which if any of you know Wheaton, it's just this glorious little town with, and moved to Wilshire Boulevard, Los Angeles. And the whole point of it was to be moms and dads, to the orphans, not only maybe truly orphans biologically, but also spiritually orphaned. They just didn't know what a healthy marriage looked like. They don't know what a healthy dad looks like or a healthy mom looks like. And my wife and I, along with another couple, both sort of descended upon Los Angeles because we really had a heart for that community. So many of those young men and women, 20s, 30s, they've left community. Maybe they did have good moms and dads wherever they are from, but they left all of that community, safety for their dreams. They're pursuing the thing that they really feel like that they're supposed to do with their lives, but they're lonely out there. It is a lonely, brutal kind of city for people that are by themselves. So that's what we're doing there.
Yeah, I bring that up because, I mean, you're working with a bunch of people who are all different races, all, that my work, doing life coaching with celebrities, professional athletes, people in Southern California here. It's all different races.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring that up is especially because I want the listener to understand the conversation that we're having is not just about Anglo families and the struggles of suburbia. We're dealing with the real issues of those who subcultures have said the expectation is XYZ,
absolutely,
1, 2, 3. And in the different cultures, I've learned myself, I'm sure you have as well, that society has set standards that are different for different cultures and different genders, for male or female. And when I was reading through your book, I think one of the deepest things that just kept coming back to me is as you were talking about presence, the presence of a dad, because in your book you go through, what does it mean to be a dad? What are the different elements of that? And one of the things you hit right at the beginning is just this presence, just being there. And I think as I look at the individuals that I'm working with, for example, an NFL football player who now is a co-owner of one of the teams. When I was talking with him, one of his big issues that really started that first domino that fell, a bunch of dominoes that led to him battling depression, battling self-esteem, battling anger, was the fact that he did not have a dad who was present.
Right.
I mean, from the beginning, he's like, I know what his name is. I just can't tell you anything about him.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
and that is such a harsh reality in throughout culture. The other hard thing about that is that there are lots of dads out there also across multiple cultures that would, in their minds, the way that maybe they were raised, or the template that they have put inside their own heads, their responsibility as a good dad is missing the mark when it comes to presence. Yeah. And that's a powerful realization when men realize that like they think in their minds, the best way I can be a great dad is to work really hard and to provide this opportunity for my kid. Yeah. And yet so many of those kids would grow up, and if I asked them as adults, they would say, my dad wasn't really around much. And that would shock the dad to hear that. Yeah. Because in his mind, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do to be a present dad. Yeah. And so I just talk about the difference between the doing and the being. And that, I mean, come on, you could, there's messages in that about all kinds of things in our spiritual walk as well. But the difference between doing and being, and as dads, man, whatever it is that we need to do to stop, to slow it down, to dial it in, to not try to be so maybe extravagant and fun all the time in terms of activity, and just be and sit and listen and cry and whatever it is that they need in that moment. And that's a big deal for all of us. We're all learning how to do that better.
I think it's especially important to the success-minded dads.
Yeah,
you're a success-minded person. That's why you've been successful in multiple endeavors that you've done. I'm a success-minded guy. So when we start a new task or a new job, new location, we have to prove to everybody that you picked the right guy.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna give you a couple of guys worth of work out of me. And so we had our first two kids. We only have two kids. We had my son Riley, and then 3.5 years later we had my son Colton. And I was working so hard. I was actually the chaplain at the college in the Napa Valley that you went to.
Come on, go Pioneers.
Pioneers. I was there for 6 years.
Yeah.
And it just, I did not understand balance.
Yeah.
And so that the statement that hit me the hardest from my 4-year-old son, when I realized, man, I can't keep doing this because I'm burning out. I really felt like I was burning out. I quit that job and started another job the next week. And I replaced 2 people and cut my job description in half. They had to replace me with 4 people.
Wow.
And so I'll never forget that very first week. It's dinner time. I sit down at the table in our new house, new location. And I sit down at the table. My 4-year-old, Riley, he goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm eating dinner with the family. He goes, no, you don't.
Whoa.
And you talk about stabbing my heart.
Yeah.
And I replied, I do now.
Wow.
And
That's
from that,
so
I mean,
beautiful.
that was a real turning point. That was 13 years ago. And, you know, it hit me so hard that my 4-year-old felt awkward that I was sitting down to have family dinner at dinner time, because up to that moment, I didn't think in any way I was being a bad dad. I was like being the best dad. I'm providing, I'm making sure. I mean, it's not cheap to live in the Napa Valley. I'm making sure by doing not only this job, but more than this job and multiple, other streams of income to make sure my family could be, comfortable and happy in this place. And my 4-year-old was like, no.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Yeah, you're not part of this.
Yeah.
That's mom and my infant brother and
my
me.
My goodness.
And so from that moment on, I was like, enough. And that broke me. I mean, I already knew up to that time that I was imbalanced and that the success mind that I had was keeping me from being successful.
Yeah.
Because success is not money. I work with people, you work with people who are extremely wealthy and they're miserable. I mean, miserable people who come to me and say, I don't even want to keep on living.
Yeah.
And they have more money than they know what to do with.
Right.
And so money is not success. What job or being on TV, I work with a lot of celebrities. They're the most fragile people you can meet in your life because they're just unsettled.
Yeah.
So that's not success. It's just getting on TV or a movie.
Right.
So what is success? And I feel like in your book, you really are touching on the cornerstones of what really makes a successful dad.
Yeah.
So for you, what was it that kind of broke you? Because to write a book, people who have not written a book don't understand.
Yeah.
To write a book, you've already written like 20 in your head, and to sit your butt into a chair and to go through the grueling filling up the blank pages, then going back and rewriting and editing and oh, this is horrible. I got to throw away these hours and hours and hours of work because this is what it needs to say.
Yeah.
That you have to have a lot of motivation. So what was it that really motivated you to say, I have to write this book? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think one of the things was and I kind of start in the introduction with this, but for at least 10 years, I would just continually notice things around me, around in our culture, around the church, everywhere. And I would say to Holly all the time, wow, you see that there? There's nobody that has more power to either build up or to tear down than Dad. Dad's just, you see it all the time. And I would always kind of talk about that and riff with her. And if I ever wrote a book, which I never ever thought I'd actually write a book.
Yeah.
But then when we got here, we had kind of left everything. We had sort of sold stuff. We had moved out. We were asking, okay, what are we supposed to do now that we're here? We know you called us here to LA. So what are we supposed to do now? I had all this margin for the very first time in my life, 22 years, full-time ministry, always with payroll and with benefits. And like, I was just used to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now I have this margin. And it was probably a month or two in, and I felt like the Lord finally just prompted me to literally sort of open my laptop. And I had an idea of how I kind of wanted to start chapter 1. Yeah. With this idea of the invitation. It's an invitation for all of us. It's a superpower to be a dad. Yeah. And I just kind of started writing in that, and that was it. And then started thinking about the keys and what makes great dads, what I've heard through conversations and all the people I've talked to about what they miss the most. And it's interesting, you were just talking about that presence idea, that key of presence. And the beautiful thing about that is I share how my dad, I know for a fact, my dad was a busy guy. He was successful in business, but I always felt like he was there. Even though I know he wasn't. Yeah. There's a beautiful kind of grace that happens when we as dads at least really put out an effort to be very present, even if we're busy. Yeah. Our kids are going to remember, Riley is going to remember that my dad ate dinner with us, even though there's going to be dinners you have to miss as he's grown up. He's going to remember, Dad ate dinner with us. Yeah. And it's just this beautiful grace. And I talk about the fact that presence is really the key to being a great dad. And that a key is a small little thing. We sometimes make it bigger than it is, but to unlock something takes this little tiny piece of metal. It's not, it's not rocket science. Yeah. And, what a gift it is to be a dad. What an opportunity, what an invitation. And then I would just look around the city that we were called to in Los Angeles and go, do you know the amount of young women and men, 20s, 30s, that just want to sit with a man who's safe and relatively healthy and ask them what they think about this, or have someone take them to lunch or give them a hug. And there's these beautiful, simple opportunities to love on sons and daughters, and it will transform culture. I've bet my whole life on it, that culture would be transformed if we just did a better job of loving sons and daughters well. So all of that had to do with my the real drive to write this book.
I think it's amazing. I've said for years, because people have asked, with the whole shift in my own parenting and consistency, and I've said for years, because people want every moment you have with your kid to be this quality moment. Like, wow, we just sat down. And, this presence. I was present. But especially as your kids become teenagers, it's like, not every moment's a quality moment.
No.
And so I've said it takes quantity time to have a quality moment.
Yeah, it's
good. And so not every moment's going to be a quality moment.
Yeah.
It takes quantity. I'm always surprised when one of my two sons, 17 and 14 years old, just open up about something that I'm like,
what did I just do to help them do that?
Because especially one of my sons, I'm lucky if I get a full syllable. I mean, sometimes it's a half a syllable, response. And so when they open up and start talking, they're really passionate about something. It's like, whoa, it's happening. Yes, I want to film it because it is rare. It takes quantity time to have that quality moment. And so I just, I want to encourage all the dads out there that are saying, I tried, I was there and they just clammed up. They didn't say anything. It's quantity time. It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. You had both your wife and your sister contribute in this book. And I think it was interesting what your sister said, Joelle, who she was talking about the self-esteem issues of her classmates and the negative body image of her classmates, and she never went through that, and she attributes that to the fact that your dad was present.
And I know that's not always the way it is. It's just her experience that she wrote, but I really thought it was important to have two daughters, two with very different experiences. My wife did not have a present dad. And my sister did. And I wanted the female voice, the daughter voice, to be represented in this book as well, that it's not just, the middle-aged white guy talking about being a dad. Because again, my experience is my own. But for my sister, she really does attribute that present dad, that consistent source of affirmation, validation. Again, Look at our culture, the amount of issues there are with not knowing who you really are, identity issues of all sorts. So much of that, of course, some of it comes from mom, of course, but so much of that comes directly from that dad voice, that dad heart in your life. And if you didn't have that, you'll either hopefully, by God's grace, find one that can be a surrogate to you. But if you don't, you're desperately searching for that from any source that will give you input. And then you're getting all this like kind of phony, surfacey input into that really deep area of your life. But my sister, she's such a great writer. I was so grateful that she wrote that about dads. But I think dads have such a unique ability to speak into things, to give wings to things in our lives that need to fly. That no matter how great a mom in the story is, and there's so many superhero moms, but no matter how great the mom is, they cannot speak with that voice or heart of a dad, and the dad cannot speak with the voice or heart of a mom. It's a critical piece, but so often, like we started with, dads can abdicate that role or back away from it because the mom's doing a great job. And so many moms do a great job. But you're missing, these kids are growing up missing a gigantic voice and a gigantic piece of who they are without dad.
I think one of the aspects that I deal with the most when I'm coaching, especially people who are going through a divorce and they've got kids. One of the human nature responses is to demonize the other. That's a horrible person. I'm protecting you kids from that person. And although there are cases where there is danger involved, and definitely if there's physical abuse, any sort of abuse that is a danger to your child, yes, you definitely need to protect your child. But that's not common, as common as mom and dad don't get along. And they hate each other now. And one of the big issues that I try to help that the couples understand is the kids need a mom and a dad.
Yes.
And although, dad may have done something to wreck the relationship, mom may have done something to wreck the relationship, even though they can't stand to be in each other's presence anymore, the best thing you can do for that child, for their self-esteem, their success, everything about that child is to make sure that they still have the influence of a mother and a father.
Yes.
They still have the love of a mother and father, and they don't feel like, well, here I can't love them and there I can't love them. To set up a situation where, the kid understands it's not your fault. This is just something that didn't work out, but you are loved and you're influenced by both. A lot of the parents don't want the influence of the other. And there's understandable. There are jerks in the world, and there's very few selfless people in the world. So of course. You have reason to hate that person. Yes. But the more you can have an understanding of this kid, especially the girl, needs the influence of that dad.
Yeah.
It is so important for the girl to have a dad.
Yeah.
Most of the coaching I have to do of the extreme cases where girls are, young ladies are needing to rewrite their life, or even old women are trying to let go of some of the habitual things that they do that are destructive in their relationships, can be traced right back to the fact that the dad was not present. And so as much as I can encourage anybody going through a divorce to say, look, yes, it's going to be a pain. Yes, it's going to be a sacrifice. But these kids are worth the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Their self-esteem, their value, their decisions that they make in the future will directly be related to, did they have the influence of a dad or
not? And there's a mind shift that has to happen. And I wrote a chapter called The Promise. And this really helped me. But this is for anybody watching that just needs a proper perspective on our role as dad and mom as well. There's this idea in two things in Scripture that's talked about, a promise and a covenant. And you could think those are the same thing, right? That, isn't a covenant a promise? A promise is right. But they're different a little bit. Covenant is made between multiple parties, and there's obligations from all parties in order to keep a covenant. And so God covenanted with David and Abraham, and there were things that he had asked of them to sacrifice and to lay down in order to keep this covenant, and they did, and so God kept his covenant. But then there's this concept of promise in not only Scripture but in the world, where it's one way, it's unilateral, it's one direction. It's from the one who made the promise to the one the promise was made to. It has nothing to do with this person's behavior or the way that they handle themselves or respond to it. And I write in there, hey, as dads, we are the promise makers. When our sons were born, you and me, we made a promise to them in that moment. They didn't choose us. They didn't choose this time or this place. God did that. And we then as dad come in and say, I'm promising to you that I am going to give you everything I know to give you. Out of as much health as I can figure out in my own life, I'm going to give you that sacrificially. And it doesn't matter if you respond to me with all the niceties and like, Dad, thanks. Dad, you're the best. Even if they never were to say that, I still made the promise, and it's my promise to keep to them. And so often it's easy. You talked about it a few minutes ago. It's so easy for us as parents to we don't get the response we want, or if there is divorce and separation and the mom has said ugly things and wants to shelter the kid from the dad, and we just kind of back off because it's easier for us just to not do anything. We've got to remember that it was our promise that we made. And whether they respond to us in a positive light or not, we keep coming. We keep showing up. We keep giving opportunities. We keep being present, even if we feel like there's nothing coming our way, because we made the promise and it goes one direction. And that's it's a natural thing to expect something in return, but that's not how parenting works. Good parenting anyways.
Well, any true form of love should be non-transactional.
Yes.
You can't love and have it be transactional. You can like and you can be kind to, but love cannot be transactional. Love is I love you because I have an opportunity to love you.
Yes.
And so dads, especially from broken marriages, and moms from broken marriages, the more they can say, it's my opportunity to love because I have an opportunity to love. Yeah. I was coaching this one lady. She's has some kids in Beverly Hills as well, and she was really upset because her son, because of her divorce years before, one son went to go live with the dad, the other son lived with the mom, and the one that lived with the dad always felt rejected by the mom. And so now he's got kids, her grandkids. She wants to see soccer games. She wants to go hang out. And she's coming to me saying, what do I do? I want to be successful in my relationship. And my question at the beginning of every session is, what do you really, really want? And she's, well, I want to be able to see my grandkids play soccer. And I said, is that what you really, really want? Because I can go take a video and give it to you, and you can see your grandkids play soccer. Yeah. What do you really, really want?
That's good.
And when it came down to it, it was a very tearful moment for her, as she wanted her son to know that she loved him.
Beautiful.
And because she felt like, because they were not, he wouldn't reply to text, he wouldn't, whatever. And so I said to her, are you willing to love him non-transactionally? Are you willing to send him a text without any desire for a text back? Because the moment you shift your love non-transactionally, you will open up the door to actually be loved back.
Yes.
But you can't love thinking, well, if I do this and do that, that's manipulation. That's not love.
Yes.
And so she rolled her eyes, thought I was nuts. And I said, will you just do me a favor? Will you just text your son and say, I'm so proud of the man that you've become. I just want to take this opportunity to love you. And I said, because you have no idea the gift that you have, how blessed you are. And she says, blessed? How could I be blessed? I'm estranged from my adult son. I said, do you know how many people that I coach who their child has died because of an accident or illness? They would give their right arm to have the ability to text their son right now and just say, I just want to let you know I'm proud of you and I love you, without any desire, any hope for a text back. Just the opportunity to love.
Yeah.
Once you get yourself to a space of being so thankful that we have technology and we have every opportunity for you to love non-transactionally, once you get to that headspace, you'll have a relationship.
Yeah.
She didn't believe me. She got in her car. She was angry with me, which some of my clients are. When
that's not a bad motivator. It's good.
I'm touching nerves.
It's good. It's good.
But she's like, I promised I would, so I'll do it. She texts, I'm proud of you, son, of the man that you've become, and I just wanted to let you know I love you. For the first time in 15 years, within 1 minute, he replied, I love you too, Mom.
Wow.
She came speeding back into my office, had to show me on the phone. I said, keep loving without any desire for anything back. You have such a blessing because your child's still here.
So well said. That's the promise. That's the promise. Yeah. And Holly and I have a term. We will remind ourselves, because sometimes we as parents will get transactional, or we'll want to go transactional, and we'll remind each other we are not needy parents. Yeah, that's what we call it, needy parents.
We're can't not be with teen boys, because I know you probably have one.
I know.
You got two sons, 50-50.
Yeah.
I have one son that when he leaves the car, if I don't say anything, there is no words exchanged at all. Yep. And the door closes. I'm like, I love you too. The other son's laughing. Nothing. The other son, he's making sure to not only say I love you and are you picking me up?
Can I give you a hug, Dad?
And then he gets himself out of the truck. He's waving through the window to make sure I see he's saying goodbye. Yeah. The other one, the exact opposite. I get zero.
We have one of each too.
Yeah, it's the love.
But we are not needy. We are not going to be needy parents, and that's same with our calling to LA. Is that this is we're coming, and LA is especially arts and entertainment industry. Yeah. So transactional. That's such a great word you use. Everything is transactional there. If you're good at this, I'll give you a job. If you're whatever, if you do this, I'll do this. And
people won't give me the time of day until they find out that I actually have a TV show and that I work in Hollywood. Totally. Now they'll give me attention, but until that moment, they don't care in Hollywood.
We're coming in and we're just saying, the only reason we're here is to love you.
Yeah.
And to build you up and to call you up and to pour into you who you really are and to share the truth of who you are from an outside perspective, stuff we all need to hear, and we're not looking for anything in return. And that's blowing people's minds. We have so many people come to us and say, these young, awesome, like our adopted little sons and daughters already, and they'll be like, we cannot believe this is really why you're here. But
they keep waiting for the string.
What is it that you want?
So what do I have to do?
What is it you want?
Because everything in the world is based on transaction.
Yeah. But as even with our biological kids as well, that's such a great reminder, is that remember, we're the promise makers, we're the promise keepers, and we don't necessarily need them to give us something in response for us to keep that promise. And that's game changing. It was game changing for me, and I think it could be game changing for lots of parents out there.
Well, you talk about this from the standpoint of we're modeling to our kids what the importance of a dad is and what the role of a dad is. And so it can't be about reciprocation. Right. It has to be about opportunity. Now, you make a great statement in this book as well. We're not supposed to raise children. We're supposed to raise adults. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, that was a speaking of another game changer for my wife and I, and I got to be honest, I would have quoted it if I'd remembered. I cannot even remember where we learned that from, but we listened to a lot of great teachers on family and raising kids and stuff. But one of the things that just really clicked into our heads was this idea of you are raising adults fully, as fully self-sufficient as possible, as soon as possible. And a lot of parents would be like, oh, I don't like that idea, because they think that we're trying to like rob childhood from them or whatever. That's not the case at all.
Or you don't want them in the house anymore.
Yeah. We had this wonderful childhood of where they got to dream and play. I mean, they were little boys. They got to do little boy things, and we never rushed them growing up. But one of the things we did try to instill as soon as possible is to be self-sufficient and to be independent. And that builds confidence in our kids. We think that what will really build their confidence is to shield them from all the negative things so that they don't have to experience all the pain and trauma we do. And then they're going to be these confident men and women. Wrong. Yeah. The way they build confidence is a kid learning that he can go to sleep in his own room and in his own bed when they're little. A kid learning that he can do his laundry, that he can actually make his own lunch if he needs to, that he can make a phone call and know how to talk to an adult when he hands them $5 for a burger or whatever. So these little things are the things that actually instill confidence in our kids. They don't want to do them. They'll complain. I remember our youngest son, we would make him early on. He was 3 or 4 years old, and he'd want maybe a cookie after his sandwich or whatever. Yeah, you can get a cookie. Here's $3. Go order. Stand in line. Go talk to that when that person says, "Can I help you?" You said, "Can I have a cookie, please?" and hand them your money. They did not want to do that, but I'm telling you, those are the things. That's what raising adults looks like. Because, and you and I know this too. Crazy things happen. We could be in a plane crash. I mean, I know it sounds so morbid, but crazy things happen, and we could leave our kids without our coaching and without our support and without our hovering sometimes. And so raising adults is just a theme that my wife and I, Holly, have continued to sort of pursue.
I think that's so important, especially, I mean, we've gone from helicopter parents to what now they're calling lawnmower parents, where you just gotta have a well-groomed lawn. Your kid never is in the deep weeds.
Yes, right.
But I'm the same way. Same things that you said, even to the fact we were at a place where Brian May, the guitar player for Queen, was there. Yeah. And my youngest son, his dream is to be a professional drummer, and he's actually really good. He's probably going to pass my technical ability. I was a professional drummer for years. Right. He's going to pass me this year. Whoa. Probably. We have 2 garages. He claimed one, and he is in there hours a day. And love it. So he sees him. He goes, "Dad, it's Brian May from Queen." And I could have gone over there and said, "Hey, can I take a picture with my son?" I said, "Take your phone and go ask if you can do a selfie."
Go talk to him.
He can't say no to a kid. And so he went over there, and meanwhile, other people have asked. He's saying no, but he kind of comes over the side, and he's got a selfie. So we're gonna do it in a big enlargement and frame next to his drum kit in his garage. But beyond that, like I want my kids to understand, and this kind of scares the teachers, but every year, especially when they're in elementary, our youngest is in 8th grade now, but every year we'd meet the teachers, before the school year starts. And I would say to the teacher, I want you to understand something. I don't want my kids to have a perfect teacher. Mm-hmm. And if at any time you're unreasonable, you act like a jerk, you say something you shouldn't say, you're really inappropriate with my kid, I'm not going to come here and I'm not going to say anything to you.
Yeah. Because
quite frankly, I need my kid to have a bad teacher.
Yeah.
I need them to understand when they're in the workforce and they have a boss that's unreasonable, a boss that asks them to do things that doesn't make sense, gives them too much work, whatever. Mm. I need them prepped. I need that not to be the first experience in life. I need them to be, here we go again. Here's how I deal with it. And so just know if my kid has a bad experience in your class, I'm not going to come be all over you and griping you out. It's going to help my kid.
Yeah.
And most of the teachers didn't know how to take it. They're just like, okay, But I'm just saying, look, I'm not my kid's defense attorney. Mm-mm. They get themselves in trouble here, they're in trouble at home as well. I'm not going to come and try to get them out of whatever consequences. And if you have a bad day, that's fine. It's going to prep my kid for the real world. I need to, like you say, I need to raise an adult. I don't need to keep raising a kid who at age 40, I'm like, okay, are you ready to, take the bubble wrap off and step out into the real world?
Realistic consequences, realistic expectations of the things around him. My mom was awesome. My mom was a little bit ahead of her time, and she was kind of a rebel, as a mom, but which I loved. But she would say things to me.
You have to say which I loved because she's going to be watching this.
No, I do. I was thinking that in my mind. No, there were so many things I could tell you that she did that was just sort of like out of the box. But I'm so grateful. But one of the things was she would say, if you get in trouble in school, you're going to pay whatever the consequence is, you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. If you get in trouble with the law, she goes, I'll be the first one to call the cops on you if you're doing something illegal. Like you're going to jail. And I always thought, now thankfully that never happened, Roy. I have no record.
Well, that probably never happened because you're like, not even my mom's going to be able to.
Right. My mom's not going to come to my defense if I actually get in trouble with this part of society. That's my responsibility.
Right.
And school is a part of society, and it's my responsibility how I behave there and how I conduct myself and how I take punishment there.
Yeah.
So I loved that about my mom. She never came to the rescue, where, but I always knew she would if she had to, but she wanted me to experience what it was like she was raising an adult. Yeah. And so anyway, I love that concept as well. It's a really strong one.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, out of all the keys that you give in this book, which one do you think is either the most powerful or the one that most people don't realize its true power? Like something that you think people just kind of skip over or gloss over.
One of the things I write about is this idea of, and it comes from a story in scripture that's just really random. I'll let people read it on their own, but it's basically Jacob and the spotted and speckled sheep, and it's this really crazy kind of story. But the idea out of it is that reproduction comes from the things that we behold, and there's other things in scripture that say that the things we behold we become changed into its likeness, and so for beholding, and this idea that maybe moms and dads, and specifically dads in this book, don't realize is that people are so watching. Our kids are watching, and others that don't know what a good dad is like are watching. Yeah. And that something supernaturally even happens in them without us even having to now let me tell you what I did there, or let me tell you why I handled it like that. Sometimes those lessons are super important. But the amount that they are gleaning by just watching us will be reproduced in their life. And that is powerfully bad and powerfully awesome for those of us doing well. And I don't think parents realize as much as they should that there's so much being caught versus being taught. And that comes back to the presence thing. The other thing I would say is, it's kind of the way I end the book, is that forgiveness is so powerful, not only from our Lord and Savior, but also from the people in our lives, and specifically our kids. The amount of people, Roy, and you can probably relate, the amount of people that I've sat with after 22 years of ministry that have talked to me about just dads that were so abusive, so unhealthy, so dysfunctional, did massive trauma, massive pain, massive damage. The amount of those people that if I said to them, now, if your dad were to find health and some wholeness, and if he were to come back to you and acknowledge his wrong and apologize to you, would you ever? None of them would say that they would not forgive that.
Absolutely.
The dad figure in people's lives, no matter how bad, no matter how damaging, is so powerful that any of us kids, sons and daughters, would forgive in a second if we saw actual humility, actually taking responsibility for actions. And that is, some dads feel like if dads are watching today, that feel like they missed it. They missed it. There's no way their kids could forgive them for what they did. I promise you,
yes,
they will, and they can. And it's this elasticity of forgiveness in our kids, including you and me, that is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
I can confirm exactly what you say. There is a real issue right now, especially post-COVID. Something happened sociologically during that time that has caused a real spike in narcissistic expressions. On the show Lifestyle, I even brought in an expert on counseling narcissists, and she says, this huge spike has happened. We're still trying to figure out why. But the isolation definitely made it worse. But within the narcissistic behavior, one of the things that you don't allow yourself to say is, I'm sorry, because then you have to take responsibility. And so I can absolutely confirm one of the greatest things that anyone can do is to consider, even though you don't see that you were wrong, even though you can't trace the outcome to your behavior, if you will say, I'm sorry and I love you, it completely opens doors. But the narcissist can't do that. The narcissist can't say, I'm sorry, because they can't accept one fraction of a percent of the blame. And so, I hope the people who are listening to this, who are not narcissists, haven't allowed themselves to go that far. And it's a spectrum. Narcissism is a spectrum. If you're 8 to 10, you cannot say, I'm sorry. And when you say, I love you, it's but, or so do this for me. But those who are healthy, but are looking and saying, how could my child ever have a relationship with me again? I guarantee, I've seen it countless times. If a parent would say, I'm sorry, that kid, they may come back with, I'm so angry because you did this, and I'm not sure if I could forgive that. But I'm telling you, you just had an injury. Just continue to be sorry and to communicate. Yeah, exactly. The question I ask everybody, what do you really, really want? And if you want a restored relationship, there's a price for everything.
Yes.
And the price might be that you'll be misunderstood for the rest of your life.
Yes.
But I'd rather be misunderstood and have a relationship that's redeemed than to be misunderstood the rest of my life and not have a chance of a relationship. So what price are you willing to pay? Are you willing to say, I'm sorry, and not have to qualify all the reasons why you're still right? But I'm sorry for this little thing. If that's the case, what you want is not a relationship. You want to be right. And you can either be right or you can have a relationship. And so what do you really, really want? Do you want a relationship? Well, the price is humble yourself, be sorry, even if you don't feel like you're 100% at blame. Take 100% responsibility and you'll get what you want.
Love only works when you truly lay yourself down. And Jesus modeled that, and that's such a good point. And I just want to make sure people understand that I'm not saying that any man should pour into sons and daughters, because there has to be a level of health. There has to be at least some level of humility and wisdom, because there are certain men that aren't ready yet. And I talk about it in the last chapter of The Turning, that have so much to deal with in their own hearts that they probably shouldn't be giving any influence into anyone. But that healing is possible in all of us men.
Yeah.
And once we find some of that restoration in ourselves, then the opportunity and the invitation, the doors that are open for us to do so much good in our culture and in our society by loving sons and daughters is just, it's without measure. It's so exciting to think about. Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the things that personally was most powerful to me in the book. When you talked about this, you call it a surrogate.
Yeah.
To be a surrogate dad or mom to the orphan, the person that doesn't really have an active dad. That was personally powerful to me, because I, as a teen, as a young adult, I had to look for the surrogates, because I did not have an active dad. I never had an active dad in my life. Yeah. And still living, breathing. He just can't come and say, I love you and I'm sorry. And we've tried, I've even as an adult, just tried to have these connections. But unfortunately for me, those are two phrases he was never able to say. So like you say in the book, I have a father, which great, thank you. I'm here. I have life because of him, and extremely grateful. I know I'll have an incredible relationship in heaven when we're at a place to where humility is there, and the ability to say I love you is there. The ability to say I'm sorry is there. I don't need someone to say they're sorry for me to forgive him. I've already forgiven him. I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. But in order for us to have a relationship, there can't be this constant attacking of the other side of the family, attacking of my mom, who wasn't perfect, but she was there. And so from that standpoint, I had to look for the surrogate father. And God was so good at bringing at each stage of my life these incredible men that do what you are prescribing in this book, which is, how do you look and with a selfless love, with a desire to help these young people understand that there are still surrogate dads out there that say, I want to pour into you because you're not my blood, but I still love you as one of my kids. And you mentioned several experiences that you've had of people that have poured in to your life,
my
to
wife,
your
too.
wife's life.
Countless.
And so I think probably one of the most powerful things that we need to talk about as well is that role of the surrogate. What do you see are the opportunities and what are the best practices for those of us who say, you had a great dad, I had an absent dad, and both of us have the same opportunity to go be a dad to the dadless.
Here's some examples that we're just living real time here. One guy in particular, he's 24, 25. He's a kind of an actor and model in Hollywood. And there was one morning over the holidays last year that he needed a ride to the airport super early, like at 4 a.m. or something. I said, hey, just come over and why don't you hang with us tonight, sleep on the couch? So we have this tiny little apartment. Sorry, we don't have a guest room, but anyway, sleep on the couch and we'll just wake up at the crack of dawn and we'll go, That night, it was just me and Holly and our youngest son, because our oldest is in college, but we made spaghetti or something and just hung out and we watched a movie, found a movie on TV. He later wrote us a text, because I think it was hard for him to actually say it, but that said, I realized last night that I don't think I can recall ever a time where I sat and watched a movie with a family as a family member.
It's 24 years old.
24 years old. They don't even realize the power it has until they experience it. And another example that I just had Sunday night, there was a girl, probably older than that, 28, maybe 29, who was sitting by herself after one of our kind of gatherings. And so much of our gathering is about family. It's about mom and dad. It's the way we do things, As she was kind of sitting by herself, it's the first time she visited, and I walked over and I just kind of said, hey, so how'd it go tonight? What'd you think? Did did you experience anything? Did anything bug you, or did you like something, or what? Tell me about it. And she says, well, I did experience one thing really, really powerfully, and it scared me to death, she said. And I said, well, what was that? She said, well, I experienced family, and it freaked me out. And she went on to tell me that she had no context for what family really felt like that was healthy and safe. She had no idea what a marriage was that was healthy and safe. There's no idea what a dad figure or mom figure. And so when she was surrounded by it, it was so overwhelming. But at the same time, she said, I kept wanting to run out of this house tonight, but I knew I needed to lean in, and I'm going to be back. And so again, we have no idea even how powerful the power of a dad is, the power of a mom, the power of family is, until you experience it. When you've been missing it your whole life, some people walk around the world and they have no clue that they're actually missing dad or missing mom or missing family. And then they experience it and it's like, wow. And so what's the opportunity? The opportunity is everywhere. The opportunity is the kid that we pass by that's wanting to sell candy bars for, and you take a minute and you just kind of say, man, this is a brave thing you're doing. This is hard. Sales is hard, man. This is you got a great quality about you.
Even though it's the world's greatest chocolate.
Right. But it's like what you're doing is not easy.
No.
And man, I think you're awesome. Like that is a dad moment.
Yeah.
That's a dad moment. Somebody calling to say, what do I do? I just got an fender bender. I don't even know what to do. Where do I take it? That's a dad moment.
Yeah.
The opportunities are everywhere for us to step into, even with you having an absent dad. You're a great dad, Roy. And you learned that from, of course, I believe supernaturally from the Heavenly Father. You learned that, and that's in you. It's in all of us, no matter what our experience is, no matter what our story, no matter what our culture or background is. Yeah. The opportunity to be a great dad in the lives of sons and daughters is in all of us.
And what you're doing is what many other families did for me. They showed me what marriage looks like.
Yeah.
They showed me what parenting looks like.
Yeah.
They showed me what happiness within the family looks like. They showed me mom and dad who weren't embarrassing the kids by fighting when they had their friends over.
Yeah.
They showed me what success looks like. They showed me what balance looks like. It is so life-changing. I mean, it changes not only an individual's trajectory, but it changes their kids' trajectory.
Oh man.
Now they have an example in the home. They don't have to look for it outside. I work with a lot of people who take the victim mindset, and I say you can only be one of two things. You could be a victim or a victor. What do you want to be?
So good.
So choose to be victorious. Don't choose to be a victim. Victim, everything outside you controls you.
Yeah.
Victor, nothing outside you can touch you.
So good.
Because you know I'm going to be victorious, and you see everything not as roadblocks. You see them as obstacles. Yeah. And an obstacle is something to be overcome. And so how do we navigate in the most loving way around those obstacles? And so, you look at the relationships, and just like what you were mentioning earlier about us parents not being perfect. I used to personally, before we had kids, be worried about, well, what if I do the same thing that my parents did, which is like, me sitting there saying, I'm never going to do that.
Yep.
I'm never going to do that to my kids. I'm never going to make my parents feel that way. Yep. Actually, it was a really good thing to happen to me because as a young person, you decide to be just like or nothing like the examples that you have. And so if you don't have those examples, you don't have the passion to say, I will literally whip myself into shape to make sure that I never do that.
Yes.
There's a heightened sensitivity because you went through it.
Yeah.
So the pain doesn't happen to you. It happens for you to say, so how am I going to be victorious? How am I going to do something that my kids will say, I'm going to do that like my dad did. I know my kids are going to say things, I'm not going to do this like my dad did. I know I naturally do things that they're looking at and saying, I'm going to do things differently.
Yeah, sure.
And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Because I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to make it something that they dislike. It's just we're different people, and also I have character flaws that even though I'm trying every day to improve, there's things at the stage of life that my kids are going to say, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to do it exact opposite of how my dad's doing. And that's okay.
It is. And that's why I make once in that surrogate chapter, I say, you can't have too many models of healthy dads and healthy moms. You can't, there's no way you can have too many. You had so many different influences where you learned different aspects of dadhood.
Yeah.
And your boys not only will cherish everything, so many things about you, sure there'll be things they are going to want to do different. And God, in his kindness, is going to provide them with other models of like, actually, I think that is really kind of how I'm wired and how I'm going to do it. And it's just, that's so beautiful the way it works. But that takes men, like I kind of the subtitle of the book, that takes men accepting the invitation to love sons and daughters with the heart of a good father. And so more than anything in this book, and I put like study questions at the end of each chapter, I'd really love men's groups to form and you know, just like, hey, challenge one another, no matter what age. Do you know there's 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are helping my son, Brandon, as dad hearts. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in, but the whole point of this book is I want more men to, like you said, I'll do whatever it takes to step into this role. Even if my kids are long gone, even if I never had biological kids, I want to step into this role to my culture, to my community, to society around me. And I contend, and I believe with all my heart, our culture would be completely transformed if that happened.
That's my prayer. Yeah, guys, definitely grab a copy of this book. The link is down below. Grab several copies and start a men's group and start this conversation, because truly iron does sharpen iron. When you hear other men, their struggle, it will help you as well. So thank you, Scott, for being here with me today and sharing this valuable resource. If you'd like more podcasts like this or to watch some of our other TV shows, I invite you to go to our website, lifestyle.org. And until the next time, we just hope you'll truly strive to live your best life possible.